It's important to me that war doesn't define who I am. I don't want to spend the rest of my life just being a guy who fought in the war in Iraq.
I gave all so that others don't have to.
When you go over there and you actually put your boots on the ground and you look around and see what's really going on, it kind of takes it all out of you, you know.
You know, I'm not ashamed of my service or what happened in Iraq, but I learned that when working with living things, you become a nurturer instead of a destroyer. And that was a really significant realization for me.
You know, we all wanted to be there. We all signed up to be there. We weren't drafted or anything, you know. So, because we all felt like that was kind of like the big thing of our generation, you know. Like, there's been World War II for the other generation and Vietnam for, our dads, and we all kind of felt like this was for us.
I love the military. I love what it did for my family, and I love what it does for this country.
And I wanted to go to college, and I knew that my options for getting there were kind of limited. And I also wanted to get out of my little cow country town that I grew up in. I wanted to see the world, and so the Navy offered me an opportunity to do that.
I was kind of your standard grunt guy with M16 who jumps fences and kicks down doors. It was really fun. I'm going to be completely honest with everybody about this. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's awful. No, I loved it, okay? I absolutely loved it.
I served in Ramadi, Iraq for 7 months. That was part of my 1-year contract. And then I got out and started school, and then they called me, and the Marine Corps wanted me to participate in what they called the Combat Casualty Replacement Program. And they said that if I would agree to volunteer, that I could take a Marine's place and a Marine in Iraq could come home. So I agreed to do that.
Yeah, I was a hospital corpsman with the 1st Battalion, 8th Marines. We would go on a patrol, wait for somebody to attack us, just walk around as human targets pretty much.
We would do things like investigate ambushes. We would go there and see if the enemy would ambush us. And that's how we could determine if there was an ambush set up or not.
You know, and being outside, rushing from one point A to point B, and running people off the road, you're always on alert. You know, you're thinking of the worst scenarios that are going to happen. And
holy shit! You know, we were trying to fight the idea of terrorism, and there wasn't a real, the enemy didn't wear like another uniform. You didn't know who was the enemy, so you were always what is that person? Who is that guy? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he going to try and shoot me? Does he have a bomb underneath his clothes, you know?
I enlisted in 2002, just prior to the Iraq War, the fantasies of growing up with Rambos in the 80s and those type of things, and I probably bit off a little more than I could chew. In November, we were ordered to once again hit Fallujah, and we did, and that was just complete chaos. And most reporters call it, 6 days in Fallujah. For most of us, it was more like 3 to 4 weeks of intense combat. And by the time we were done, we had lost 33 Marines, and the city was in bad shape. It was pretty much destroyed.
I was in a Humvee and we were going through the town, and we had snipers on the building. They were firing at us and bombs were blowing up everywhere. And and a mortar came in, and it blew up the same side of the door that I was on, and I was injured from that, and I took shrapnel to my head and to my legs. I was scared like anybody would be. You know, I didn't want to die there. I hadn't seen my family for 15, 16 months, and I looked up and I started praying. I said, Lord, I said, if you get me home to see my family at least just one more time, I told him, I said, I promise I will make my life worth saving. I'll go back and I'll create something so great that helps so many other people and to give back to other people.
The hardest thing is you're coming from a killing mode and you're going back to civilian life.
There's no decompression time that you ever have from the war zone to back into your community.
They're used to leading their men, they're used to having anxiety, they're used to the chaos. And so when you come home, you're excited that they're here, and you want to have parties and have people around so that they welcome them home. And the last thing they want is parties and people around. It's like amazing.
We definitely didn't like big, busy areas, restaurants or go to the mall or anything like that. When you come back, you want peace and quiet.
If we go into a restaurant and there's not a table where my husband can have his back to the wall and he can see the whole room, if that table's not available, we'll go somewhere else.
So a lot of it's urban combat. So driving down the street like San Francisco and Oakland, you're driving along and you're always looking at the road, always scanning, looking for IEDs.
Matthew does not give me any details about his past life. He would actually wake up kind of gasping sometimes, and being new to that type of behavior, it was scary.
The insomnia and the memory issues are two of the biggest problems that I noticed from him coming back from the war. Sometimes I get really frustrated having to tell him things over and over and over and over again, and I have to remind myself that, it's not his fault that his memory loss or his memory is not working as well.
I just didn't know what I was in for. I didn't know that you could come back and be so changed. Be so changed by something. Forever just changed.
These veterans are not transitioning out well. They come right from combat, and if they didn't re-enlist, they go right into employment with the civilian sector of people that don't understand.
Some guys see some stuff over there that, is unimaginable, unthinkable. And, they can't relate to other people.
The wounds left by the psychological trauma of war are not as evident to the outsider, but to the spouse or a loved one, the wound is unmistakable. Systems in place to treat psychological trauma would have an individual recount what they might not want to relive. Letting someone know that your consciousness suffers is to uncover what you work all day to suppress.
A lot of guys who I served with, we just drank a lot. You just drank all those feelings away, and you drank to go to sleep at night, because you had a hard time just falling asleep regular.
I stayed in hotels so that I could have access to the hotel bar from early in the morning until late at night. And it also allowed me to sort of seclude myself so that I didn't have to answer questions from my friends and family about how I was doing or what my experience was like.
Well, there's a lot of guys that are coming back now. They have the traumatic brain injury, the post-traumatic stress disorder, and a lot of things with the traumatic brain injuries is memory. Even if it's a closed head injury, we have memory problems. We have balance disorders. We have anger issues. Guys that some of their frontal lobes, like I was hitting the frontal lobe here, and the blood wasn't going to my frontal lobe there, so it was creating. So it would create more anxiety. I would snap faster. I couldn't keep a nice calm level.
A loss of purpose when folks get out of the service and come home can be pretty devastating. Feeling lost or literally ungrounded can cause all kinds of turmoil in a life.
There was a time period there for about about 2 years where I was essentially homeless. I didn't have the means or the way to provide a roof over my head. So what I would do was I was going to school during this time too. I was still trying to better myself, so I would go to school, and then in the evenings I would go and find some bush somewhere and crawl up under there. And that was, to me, that's where I felt safe, because that's all I did in my previous job in the Marines and recon. We would harbor up under some big thick brush and stay there all night. So I did that for about a 2-year time period.
When I came home, they put me on a lot of medicine, over prescription medicines and stuff, and that I kind of, got into that droid feeling.
I couldn't drive. I didn't live a normal life. I was literally so high I didn't want to get out of bed to use the bathroom, and I could sit there for hours slobbering on myself, and I wouldn't have known it. I wouldn't have even known it. And this is only following the instructions on the bottle of medicine that the doctor gave to me. This is without even becoming a serious abuser.
Trying to go to the VA and explain my situation and how I'm feeling. I'm in pain all the time. I can't sustain a job that requires me to be able to work on point every minute of every day. There's just no way. I can't.
Applying for disability takes so much energy. You have to actually be a squared away individual. You have to be competent to prove that you're not competent to work.
Finally, these vets, so many of them just get disgusted with the system and say, the heck with it, I can't get any help from the VA, and that's how they end up homeless, or that's how they end up suicidal, or all of these negative things that happen to these folks because the system is so broken.
I know a handful of guys who survived the war only to shoot themselves in the head since they've been back. Veterans need real options when they're coming back. They don't just need a program and some pamphlets or a little bit of counseling. They need options that are going to allow them to take care of their families, to pay their bills, and to start a new life.
The Veterans Affairs is supposed to pick up where the Defense Department leaves off, but there's no transition program really within the Veteran Affairs.
Everyone in your life wants to know, well, what's next? What are you going to do next? And so for most folks, I told everybody I was just going to use my JAGO and go to college. But I had another plan too, but it was kind of a secret. I only told a few people, and it was mostly because I was terrified of ridicule, and that was that I had this desire to buy some land and farm it and be self-sufficient. A lot of the people that I chose to tell that were still in the service or were recently getting out of the military, I would tell them, and their faces would change, and they would get this look of recognition almost. And a lot of them had very interesting responses to what I said, but most of them were variations of, wow, me too.
It's unbelievable to think that just the act of living itself, feeding yourself, making sure that other people have food, could be so gratifying. All you can do is just experience your children laughing and having them see their father smiling.
As a veteran, a combat veteran, I was involved with a lot of destruction. And shifting from that to being a creator, and growing something and seeing something thrive it does something on a very deep spiritual level, I think.
They need somewhere to de-escalate. They need somewhere to relax and calm down, get their mind right. We have a lot of guys, and you guys that are watching this, they know that A lot of times you don't want to say everything to a psychologist because they're concerned about what's going to be written up. They're concerned about their own disability pays. They know they could say something at any moment and they could lose their disability, so they're terrified to go to group meetings. But out here under this tree, we're a brotherhood.
We can talk amongst ourselves, and everybody understands that you know, you don't have an issue. You're just a guy that had a rough time, and they can let that off their chest.
And I get a call from a guy, and he says, Adam, he said, the Wounded Warrior program sent me to ITT. They're sending me back to college. They want me to go back to school. And I said, hey, yeah, that's great. He said, but I'm having a panic attack. He said, I'm out here having a panic attack. I don't know what to do. What do I do? I said, buddy, I says, drive out to the farm. I'm dressing, I'm getting there. I'm heading out to the farm right now. And about 45 minutes later, he rides out here. I take this chair right here under this tree, and we sat here for about 2 hours. And I didn't have to say anything. I just sat here and I listened to him. And at the end of the day, he looks up and he says, wow. He said, I haven't felt this much peace since I've been back from the war. I started dreaming of the days of playing out there with the guys and having fun and throwing a blueberry at each other and we're just having fun with each other. And I was like, I want to get back to that. I want to laugh again. I want to have fun again.
The thing about it is, we come out here, I'm working outside in fresh air. You know, I don't care how I felt last night or how good I didn't sleep last night because of issues that I have. And, you know, I come here, work all day, I feel like $1 million.
I was on medications, so many medications that I was able to come off, like blood pressure medications and some of the PTSD meds. I could lower some of those meds. I actually saw my cognitive skills getting better. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. This is working for me, and so many guys come back. Why can't this work for them? And this is where we got the first farm started with the Veterans Farm.
And we can have guys out here in a wheelchair picking. I mean, we setting it up perfect so that disabled veterans can work on this farm and they can feel like they're a part of the community again. And that right there makes such a difference to people's lives.
The unofficial therapy dog right there.
There ain't nothing like happiness to make.
That's right, happiness creates happiness, right?
You know what's really healing is, number one, a job, but number two, doing something that's needed, doing something that's necessary, doing something that, you know, having a new mission, having a new purpose.
Your service doesn't have to end when you leave the military. That serving you, there's ways to serve other than the military. I think if you don't carry that forward, it seems that those are the people who weren't satisfied with their transition and weren't happy with what they picked next.
You know, we are headed toward a time when we will have close to 9 billion people living on this earth. At the same time, we know that the resources for producing food are dwindling as we're developing areas and taking them out of agriculture. This is going to be the defining issue of this century, is how we are going to figure out to feed ourselves with so many people.
The greatest resource that this country has is not its battleships, its bombs, and its airplanes. It's the ability to feed itself, i.e. food availability and quality food availability, not imported junk from overseas.
There is a need for farmers.
There's 8 times as many farmers over the age of 65 as under the age of 35.
We need, what was that number, 1 million new farmers? There, I think it came out of USDA, right? 100,000 new farmers per year for the next 10 years needed to fill the coming gap.
Not only are we losing our farmers, but we're losing the knowledge of how to coax food from this land.
Our loss of farmers, we feel like it's a question of our national security and the future of our country.
Energy and food security are a direct relationship to national security.
Farmers have to save the world. That's our job. Our job is to bring food to people around the world and here in the States. So nobody said it was going to be easy, but the fact is that none of us joined the military because we thought it was going to be easy. We joined the military because we were going to be tested, that we're going to find out what we're made of, find out who we are. And that quest of finding out who I am has brought me from the military into farming.
The goal of the Farmer Veteran Coalition is to hook up the latest generation of veterans returning from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan with viable careers in agriculture. Educational farming retreats for veterans is something that a really unique project that we've developed. They're around a theme. It could be organic farming, it could be sustainable animal production, it could be urban intensive vegetable production. And every time there's almost a point of kind of religious conversion of somebody saying, you know, I'm going to be a farmer. This is it, you know. We need lots of old farmers like me more to come up to me and say, I'd like to be willing to help mentor somebody, and we could match you with somebody with your type of farming. We want a network. We need hundreds of mentors, basically to take on one veteran and say, I spent my entire career growing. I can spend some time showing you how to do that.
The background for me of allowing that sort of thing is that I heard a speaker at an organic farming conference some years ago say to this whole group of organic farmers, you have to consider 50% of your job description to be education for this movement to go forward. And at the time I slapped my forehead and I said, 50% of what? There's nothing left.
You know, we met John Wilson at New Earth Farm, and it was neat to bring the kids to the farm to volunteer, and then we thought, we really like this. I always loved yard work when I was a kid. I loved being outside, and this was the most natural transition. I never envisioned transitioning out of the military and going into the next corporate job.
Coleman loves to work. He loves to work with his hands and be dirty. And Coleman likes things that have a start and have a finish. And you plant a seed and you get a plant.
I just asked John, would you mind if I gave you my labor and I learned something from you? And it's not really a traditional employee relationship, but the bottom line is I need to learn more, and I suppose that all farmers could use a little bit more help.
We walked around John's farm.
Yeah.
And said, like, this would be fun. We could do this.
Yeah,
and we do like to work together.
We don't work the same,
no.
But we do like to work together. It kind of all just converged into one idea, and here we are, and we'll see where it goes.
Leaving the military, you know, my commitment to the Defense Department has ended. My contract expired, but my commitment to those Marines and those guys that I served with and the guys that are serving now, you know, I always feel in debt to those guys.
The separation anxiety that I think a military person goes through when they leave active duty is big, you know, because those are the people they fought with, that they, you know, grieved with, that they had some of their most difficult days that when they look back were their best days. So to have that separation was not okay. And so I said, okay, I know how we can do this, and we'll create a learning program where people can learn how to become farmers, and then they could either work here or they could have their own farm. And we called it the Veterans Sustainable Agriculture Training Program.
And our goal was to try to tap into the skills that the military people bring and translate into agriculture, which we think is just naturally a good fit for these people.
I saw a sign up there that said Veterans Sustainable Agriculture Training. And I never thought I would see the words veterans, sustainable, and agriculture all in the same phrase. It just blew me away. And being that Colin was a veteran and deployed to Iraq like 3 times, we automatically had a connection.
So Colin teaches the class, and he teaches from seed to market on sustainable organic agriculture.
And the thing about hydroponics that really interested me was the integration of technology with the age-old art of plant production, using about 80 to 90% less water than most of our herb competition is. We're able to get about 10 crop turns a year, where a lot of growers are looking at about 6 to 7. In our greenhouses, we get about 17 crop turns a year.
So an advantage of hydroponic systems is that they're easily replicatable, particularly in environments where maybe the manufacturing industry has left and been outsourced, and now there's these huge warehouse buildings left. Detroit's a perfect example. We can go in there, equip these warehouses with grow lights and hydroponic systems, and turn those warehouses into income-producing land. We can train vets, and we can set them up with the business plan and the standards, and they could take that home and replicate what we're doing in almost any environment, whether home's Alaska, whether home's New York or Michigan.
But really what we also are able to do is tap into the leadership skills that these veterans contain and produce business owners out of them and entrepreneurs out of them. And I think that's a big yearning for returning vets, because they have these leadership skills, but they don't have training that translates to the private sector.
So we're in the manufacturing company here that bottles my dang hot sauce. And this, you know, it's an all-natural, raw, organic hot sauce. And, you know, I figured after the experiences that I've been through, I just want to put the highest integrity foods in my body.
For us at Colin and I, this is not a job. It's our mission.
I'll tell you what, it's one of the most incredible experiences of my life is having horses. It's been a really incredible spiritual journey for me. And then the horses got me into the other livestock. This is Dolly, the white one, and the one with horns here is Norman. And we just rescued them about 2 days ago, actually. There's some very interesting differences between the new generation of farmers that are coming up and the older generation, and one of them is our access to technology. Almost everything I have here, I got over the internet. All my horses came from connections I made on the internet. All our goats came from connections we made through Craigslist. And I think when people typically think about farming or ranching, they don't think of it as a business, but it really is a serious entrepreneurial endeavor. You're putting money on the line, and you're betting based on a set of circumstances that at the end of this project, I'm going to get paid back more than I put into it, which sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. We've lost about 30 chickens since we started this, you know, and our neighbor's dog got most of them. And that's something we didn't calculate into the formula, the neighbor's dog.
We really need to do everything we can as a nation to keep farming alive.
We need to find regional solutions to our agricultural system. We need to develop small farming in communities from Botswana to Boise, Idaho to the South Bronx. We need local agricultural systems that will help us get the kind of high quality nutritious foods that people must eat to be healthy to their plates.
Farming is it's a sacred cause. And you know, you're feeding people. Food is fundamental. Everyone eats.
The main part of our business is raising pigs and chickens on pasture. Conventionally, pigs are always raised indoors, and so are the chickens. The pigs are neurotic, they're propped up on antibiotics, that's the only way they stay alive. We don't do medications, antibiotics, we don't clip teeth, we don't dock tails, we don't do any vaccines, any worming, none of that stuff, and our pigs are perfectly healthy. You can pet all of our pigs, they're friendly.
Even though our meat and eggs are more expensive, they're more nutritionally dense. So you're actually getting more nutrients, you know, per dollar than you are with conventional meat and eggs.
People are realizing that they want good food, and somebody's got to grow it.
You know, like they've done studies that we store our stress hormone, the cortisol, that gets stored in our fat. And it's the same thing for pigs and chickens. If they're stressed out and freaked out all the time, they're gonna have that stuff in their fat and in their meat. Go to one of those hog warehouses, that's all it is, just nonstop screaming and crying because the pigs are so freaked out all the time. And our pigs are just chilling. I can't hear them screaming.
My name is Matthew Rayford, and I am the owner of Gilliard Farm. Veteran Farmers Coalition helped us get our CCF certification. They also helped us get the trees that you see here. We were able to get all of that stuff due to the fellowship grant that my sister was able to apply for as a disabled veteran.
The history of our of the land that we have here goes back to 1876. Our great-great-great-grandfather, basically Civil War was over with, and he ended up becoming the owner of this property.
Last year, our grandmother, aunt, and my mom came to Althea and said, hey, you two are probably going to be the ones to do something. So here you go. So they handed us a pen, and they handed us a gift deed and said, the land is yours. And we looked at each other and tried to figure out, okay, what does that mean other than more taxes?
That's where I come into play.
Matthew has the green thumb. I have the heavy equipment operator's license. So I can pretty much work a dozer, a backhoe, front end loader, grader, anything. I did construction for 10 years. So for me, this is where I get excited because I get to play with my toys.
Our biggest thing right now is funding. You know, like how do you fund this thing, you know, called farming, and especially us trying to do something organic, and which is kind of, you know, on one end people talk about organics as though it's, you know, for the lifestyle of the rich and famous, but it's really good food for everybody. We have a very clear mission on being what we call good sap. And so that goes back to stewardship of the land, great stewardship of the land, being sustainable, making sure that we're giving back to the land what it's giving us, access, and part of what LT was talking about, you know, having kids come out, is access to good food that is healthy, knowing where it comes from, knowing that this farmer did everything that he could to make sure that what I'm putting in my system, I can grow from it and not have any other things happen to me later on. So we want to make sure that being sixth generation farmers, is that we continue to go ahead and push that as our mission. So that's our good step.
That's our good step.
We both wanted to start farms, and we decided we should just try to start a farm together. And you know, people kind of cautioned us against, you know, being business partners and being in a relationship together, but so far so good. So, you know, it ended up being really wonderful.
We're a small farm, which means that we can really put in a lot of thought into the quality of our produce, more so than grocery stores or a lot of other farms out there.
The idea and kind of a pure CSA would be that people in the community pay up front for a whole season's worth of vegetables that they're going to get in these weekly boxes, and then in turn the farmers are taking less risk when they, you know, buy their seeds and pay for fertilizer and all those expenses that come up front in farming.
Not to mention, when you buy a vegetable in a grocery store, essentially the price that you're paying for that vegetable, also most of that price is going towards packaging, towards the refrigeration from these giant refrigerators, and towards shipping it halfway across the country or halfway across the world in some cases. Here, you know, our transportation is our white van, and our refrigerator is just behind us, and that's kind of all the infrastructure we need to feed people here in the Bay Area.
In America, we think of farming as something that has to happen, you know, way out, far away from the city center, and then be trucked in, you know, from this pastoral landscape into the gritty city life. That's really not true. Today, we have rooftop farms, we have abandoned lots being taken over, we have really high-tech vertical farming and solutions that can happen almost anywhere. And you know, veterans understand that you need this technology and you need to understand the urban landscape to actually make change. And that's exactly what is happening in the agricultural community today.
My training in the military helped me build, I believe, the skills that were necessary to be effective. When I returned from the military, I recognized that I had the ability to create change in my own community. We have 25 fast food restaurants in a square mile right here on Crenshaw and Century, which is just 3 blocks from this high school. But very few supermarkets in and throughout the city, and I think we're seeing that trend around the country in multiple communities. You know, I have a sister with diabetes. I have an aunt with diabetes. By 2020, every 1 out of 2 African American students are expected to have diabetes. So our goal is to begin to not only address that issue, but to turn it around. As an organization, we created an initiative called 100 Seeds of Change, which is our commitment to building 100 community school and home gardens in and throughout the city of Inglewood and South Bay. The goal of that is to build a local food system and to build local production.
What are we doing today, Kia?
We're giving away fruit trees to the community.
Today we're giving 1,000 trees to 1,000 families. Our youth are committed to eliminating our community's designation as a food desert, and it's important that we provide these fruit trees as food assets so people can grow food for themselves. The community can begin to feed itself. Say trees! Trees! All right, high five. Thank you for coming.
I'm gonna be grateful for whatever I get. I don't care if it's peaches, plums, oranges, apples, Whatever it is going to benefit my children, and I have 6 of them, so I'm going to make sure I do good on my tree.
Nutrition, the health of human beings, has to be part of our national security. We can empower vets to be in organic, sustainable agriculture. What a great way to do something that's very worthwhile, to be in a market that is growing. I mean, you can be successful in this.
I think it's an incredible marriage of a need for veterans to be continuing to improve American national security and a need for America to develop a nationally secure food system. So marrying those two together is just an unbelievably brilliant double solution to two very disparate problems.
The vets that are coming back, turning their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, they are showing us, along with many others, that it is possible to create a fair food system, and they're doing it.
I really see in these veterans not just farmers, but leaders of the farmers, leaders of this next generation of farmers. They're articulate, they're focused, they're extremely entrepreneurial. They've taken on the military and they're taking on agriculture. They're taking on the two hardest things in our society, and they're not even 30 years old. They're amazing young men and women.
I'm in such a better mood. I feel as though I have a goal. There's light at the end of the tunnel.
I've come to the conclusion that that's exactly it. I've sort of found some peace and contentment, and it's been so long since I've had it that it felt foreign to me, you know?
In 100 years from now, we look back at these times, there's going to be so profound things that are said about Americans living right now. And hopefully, they say good things, and I want to be part of that.
At this point, maybe I've brainwashed myself. At this point, I can't even imagine anything more important than growing food.
This is it. Teach these guys how to farm. They can feed themselves, they can feed the community, they can feed their family, they can have a sustainable life through sustainable agriculture.
To transition from a battlefield to a farm field is almost makes more sense than transitioning into like Dilbert's cubicle or a classroom of 18-year-old kids who have never seen anything but, you know, reality TV, you know, and when you've gone out and seen the world and had your friends die in your arms, and you're coming home and you're 26 years old and you're looking for where is my place in this life, we feel like this is a place, you know, where you could take all those things that you brought into the military, your strength, your bravery, your ability to stand up when you're knocked down, your sense of service, your sense of sacrifice, and your just willingness to carry the world on your shoulders.
Rain in the meadow, song of the nightingale, snow on the mountains, call me home. Here by the river, the smoke is rising, a cool wind blows. Quiet evenings, signs of an early spring, wildflowers growing for your hair. There's peace in the valley, lay my soul to rest where the river runs in the morning sun. Lay your body down beside me. There's peace in the valley, love's come home.